I'm Peter from the Daily Rios.
I'm Eric from Longbox Review, and this is episode 20 of Peter and Eric's Legion Project podcast. Hello and welcome to the Legion Project podcast. I am your co-host, Eric.
And I'm your co-host, Peter.
And this episode, Peter and I will be discussing issue number 20 of the 1984 Legion of Superheroes comic book series.
How about we start off just by saying we are recording. This is our last episode that we are recording at the end of 2019, but it will be released in 2020, so we should say hope everybody's had a good holiday, or that you're going to have a good safe New Year's, and that we all survive the turn of this next decade.
Yeah, we're living in the future, Peter.
We really are. 2020, that's like such a benchmark of science fiction, right? Wasn't there a Superman of 2020 or something like that?
And over on the other side of the aisle, Marvel is relaunching their whole 2020 line, I think.
Oh, right, Iron Man 2020. Yeah.
Strange times.
So, right. And that's not the only milestone. We're recording this the day before your birthday. Happy birthday. Your birthday boy.
Yeah.
It's just another year, right?
Yeah, that's right. Right. Another year older, another comic box filled, something like that.
Oh, geez. I average a comic box every about 2 or 3 DCBS shipments, I think.
Oh my gosh, really?
I might be exaggerating, maybe 4 or 5, but still, those boxes get tighter and tighter as each new shipment comes in.
Yeah, I've got my system is I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show before, but my system is I have a short box, and as I fill up that short box, then it's time for me to take all those issues and put them into integrate them into my long boxes, and I'm at that point. So sometime after the new year, I'm going to have to go do the comic book shuffle.
I got a chance to actually pick up some Legion comics. You celebrate a birthday around this time, so do I, in November. So I picked up a whole bunch of issues that I was missing from the Dan Abnett, Andy Lanning Legion run. But I also managed to pick up some Tales reprint issues that I didn't have, about 6, 7, 8 of those, including the reprint for the issue that we're doing today. So that was kind of cool. I was like, I don't know why I don't need them, but it is kind of interesting to look through them compared to the Baxter run. And then, of course, they always have the different covers, different ads, etc. So I've been collecting a lot of back issue Legion stuff lately. Did you get anything comic wise Christmas? You're going to be celebrating like 3 more Christmases, but did you get anything?
Well, no. As I was telling Peter off mic, I'm going to be celebrating Christmas with family later. Right after we get done recording here, I'll be doing that, and then I'm heading south to visit my daughter to do the same with her and her family. So I actually haven't received anything comic book related so far. So it'll be a big surprise for me after this. It's been the weirdest Christmas, Peter, that I've ever had, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, I give you Legion of Superheroes number 20. You can have it. You can keep it. You can do with it what you want.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not my favorite issue either.
Yeah. But we still get to record an episode, so that's always fun.
Yeah. Well, and we also have some, what issue 20 perhaps may lack. Maybe it's made up for in the Who's Who discussions that we are going to have later.
Yeah, right?
Because it's a big one.
You want to get started?
Let's.
Okay.
All right, so this is issue number 20, To Control a World. This is by Paul Levitz, Greg LaRocque, and Larry Malstead are the artists, John Costanza on letters, Carl Gafford colors, and Karen Berger is the editor. Cover by LaRocque and Malstead. So the death world of Taraz attacks Ultra Boy, Phantom Girl, Chameleon Boy, and Shrinking Violet. Element Lad arrives with the controller, and everyone boards the world before being blasted by their old enemy, dun dun dun, Tyr. Back on Earth, Sunboy is vying for the Lothario Award by more than just casually flirting with Gigi, who is milking him for information about the Technopark crime. Subplot alert. In deep space, Mon-El, Dawnstar, and Wildfire are looking for the missing Legionnaires. Wildfire gets a little too handsy with Dawnstar, and Mon-El quips about being as useful as a fifth wheel. There's more fighting between Ultra Boy and Tyr. Phantom Girl rejoins Element Lad and company, and she engineers the inspiration for Element Lad to solve the Taraz problem once and for all. Back on Earth, Shadowlass attempts to coax Brainiac 5 out of his lab, while Lightning Lass wonders why Shadowlass even bothers. After all, Brainy is a bit crazy. For his part, Brainy is definitely girl crazy, obsessed with who is Sensor Girl. And from afar, she almost takes pity on the Kaluan. Back on Taraz, the Legionnaires work their way to the world engines while fighting Tarazians, and Element Lad and the controller continue debating about whether or not to destroy Taraz. Tyr attacks again, and Element Lad puts him on ice, or rather an Intertron cage. As Element Lad ponders how to destroy the engines without destroying the world, Mon-El and the others arrive, just in time for the engines to shut down after some mechanical surgery performed by Phantom Girl and Shrinking Violet. Mission accomplished, the Legionnaires leave along with the detached engines, thus destroying the socio-economic freedom of the Tarazians, but as a consolation prize, the controller is staying behind, forgive me, Peter, to fight evil on the planet as the Pink Knight. I had to come up with some things to make it worthwhile, Peter.
And then we should say there's also a backup tale, which I'm sure we'll talk about.
Yeah,
later.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right. The shining beacon of this issue.
Yeah,
just barely.
Yeah. Let's start with the covers, so we'll start with something that we can kind of be positive about, I guess. Maybe?
Well, yeah. Generally speaking, that's kind of the one thing that I enjoyed about the issue was the art, and I'll talk about that more generally in a little bit. But
okay. So we have two covers. The first one that you mentioned, and then the Tails one, the Tails cover by Joe Brzezowski and Greg Brooks. This is Tails 345 that was reprinted a year later, also showcasing a battle with Tyr, this time between Element Lad and Tyr, with Ultra Boy and Phantom Girl. Phantom Girl consoling a fallen Ultra Boy in the background. So, two covers. This is one of those issues that I picked up because in my collection, I didn't have any Tales past, maybe past 2 or 3 issues before this. So, I have a whole bunch now after it that I'm able to look and compare with. So, two covers. Did you get a chance to look at the Tales one?
Yeah. Actually, I don't have this issue either, but I'm looking at it online right now.
Yeah. Preference goes to?
Oh, the issue number 20 for sure.
Yeah.
It's got this it kind of conveys this sense of dread that's not really conveyed in the story, and it's very simple. It's just because here's Tyr, front and center, and Phantom Girl and Shrinking Violet are coming down a hallway, about to get blasted by Tyr. So, and the other one is, as you described, Tyr fighting Element Lad, which I guess that cover really kind of conveys more of what actually happens in the issue. But yeah, it's okay. They're both fine covers, but I definitely give the nod of the hat to issue number 20.
Yeah, same with me. But not because I necessarily like it, just because I think it, it connects with my eye more, or in a better way. I don't think, especially once you read the story, I don't think Tyr deserves that much coverage,
Yeah,
and that much spotlight.
precisely that he gets more spotlight on the cover than he does in the entire issue.
Yeah, I mean, when I knew that this two-parter was coming up, I was like, wow, is Tyr really that major of a Legion villain? I mean, by these covers, you would think so, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but then when you pull them away from the story and just like sort of treat them as covers or promotional images, I mean, I sort of can understand the Baxter putting him front and center. But again, the thing that kind of that I respond to is we've been having covers that have been a little more not abstract, but they had a little bit different of a design sense. This just sort of feels like it could be a panel inside the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of standard to me, and especially the Tales one.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I don't particularly consider either of them eye-catching, but if I had to pick, I would pick the Baxter one.
Just by a hair, right?
Yeah.
I will say, like I said, the art, I enjoyed it a bit more this issue than maybe previous issues with LaRocque, on the holding the reins, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And because the way that I'm looking at just the construction of it, because you got Tyr, he's red skinned as all Tarazians, I guess, are. And so that kind of pops on the blue background with his yellowish outfit, right? And he's looking kind of down and to the right, and that draws your eye to the tip of his gun, which is kind of pointed already at the girls who are coming down the hall. So I just kind of like the way that your eye is drawn across the cover in that way to convey some sort of movement.
Right.
And just Tyr's face, I think, is well constructed.
It's interesting to see motion lines around his hand on a cover.
I noticed that too. That's so weird.
Yeah,
I'm not sure what is that supposed to convey. He's twitching in anticipation.
Yeah. So strange.
Yeah. This is a bit of an oddball issue.
Yeah, I mean, we've been saying it enough already. This I really feel is the first issue that tanked for me. We even if there have been issues that maybe we didn't like it as much, I never felt that they were subpar, right? And maybe that's being a little harsh on this issue, but I don't know. I just like even midway, I was like, what is this issue? It's kind of boring. It's kind of surfacey. My one note was a lot of the dialogue, none of the Legionnaires really come across well in this issue. They're either sarcastic or they're demeaning or they're condescending. I did not like this issue. This is the first one for me that I really felt was a stinker. So,
yeah, I would generally agree with that. I do think though that there are some bits of character moments that are kind of neat. I'm thinking specifically of Element Lad. Some of the kind of the surface relationship-y type stuff between Phantom Girl and Ultra Boy, I kind of like that, but that's tied to other things. It's not particularly what's in this issue. It just this issue is kind of continuing that, So yeah, maybe like I said, I was just kind of perhaps grasping at some straws to pull out some good things out of this issue, but
I also felt like the wrap up to the first two-parter wasn't satisfying. I feel like our conversation of the first two-parter of this story, back in issues 7 and 8, where we had the Lost Legionnaires coming across this world. What are they supposed to do? Oh my God, Sun Eater. Do we destroy the world? Do we not? How do we handle this? Blah, blah, blah. Oh God, controller. And then the first part of this story, last issue, had some potential, had some promise. I felt like the larger debate, while I can certainly understand where everybody fell on that debate, on the sides of that debate, I can see why they went to certain places. It was kind of debated, and that was it. And then it just became about, what do we do? And I felt like the solution, we're going to stop the engines. Like, you didn't think of that already? And really, is that all that needs to be done? I don't know. I just felt it wasn't satisfying.
Well, yeah, and to add to that, a controller was preparing a Sun Eater to destroy this adversary, this world, the Tiraz, right? And yet, it's artistically, it's shown as barely bigger than, I don't know, a planetoid, a small moon.
Mm-hmm.
It's no Death Star, and yet it was dispatched, relatively easy, and the peril was not perilous. There was no stakes in this at all.
Yeah.
And like I can't remember if I said this already or if it was before we started recording, but such wasted opportunity. At the very least, from a dramatic interpersonal standpoint, we got a little bit of that last issue with Element Lad talking about, they touched on the fact that he's the survivor, the lone survivor of an entire planet that was destroyed. That was his people were murdered, right? And by God, he's not going to be part of that. He's not going to allow that. He's a Legion leader, So, and they have this code. So, like I said, they touched on that a little bit, and it's debated a little more here, but it's so much in the background. It's surfacey. It's not at all elevated as it could have been, and maybe Levitz wanted to do that on purpose because that was the obvious choice. I don't know, but give me something.
Well, it's interesting in your synopsis, where you talked about, how did you put it, that they wrecked the socio-economic whatever. That to me would have been interesting. Here's a group of people that Tyr is in charge of. I think we talked about last issue about there's this sort of pirate quality. He even says it once again, I am the scourge of the galaxy, or whatever he said, which is the same thing he said in his very first appearance ever. They call him Captain. We have this planet that could be, they're pirates. They go around and mess around with people's worlds, right? But it would be interesting to see a little bit more of, not only is there one Tyr, there's a whole planet of Tyrs, and do they all follow along with this, right? Or are some of them just along for the ride? So maybe if the dilemma, and now I'm playing, backseat writer, but maybe if the dilemma was not only about the world, but the people of the world.
Yes. I had that in my notes too. I wanted to know more about this group of villains, quote unquote villains. Because they can't just be. They were very much background fodder,
right?
And really, we only. This is it's supposed to be a world, and yet all we see are, a group of maybe 10 in a panel or two, yeah. Right. So I realize it's a comic book. They only have so much space to show things like that, But yeah, they were very much uniform. They were all of a thing, and there was no nuance. There was no individuality. So it's just, I don't know. Show me something. Give me something more than just, here's the villain of the month that needs to be dispatched.
Yeah, because they just become another race like the Khunds. You know,
Yes.
they're just your generic Klingon-like group, with, as you said, no individuality. And I I, I even wonder if Levitz sort of downplays the controller himself. There's that one bit of dialogue pretty late in the story where the controller says, "We renounced personal force centuries before we even left Oa, human. Watching you reminds me of the vigor of our youth." And I feel like because as part one kind of showed us that this controller was acting, I don't know, I guess he was kind of serving some kind of penance, right? Because the Legion stopped him from making the Sun Eater in the previous two-parter, so he wasn't able to destroy this planet. So the controller said, all right, you have to do some kind of penance. We're going to strip you of your powers a little bit. And you have to come up with a new way to make this happen, which is why he's reunited with those 5 Legion members again. So he's saying there, you know, we gave up personal. We gave up. What's the word? I just had it. We renounced personal force centuries before. That's not the controller thing, right? Like the controller, the whole reason why the controller split from the Guardians is because the Guardians were the more passive group when it came to fighting evil. The controllers were more like, no, we're going to stop it out before it even gets there, which is why you could sort of say that's why he built the Sun Eater in the first place.
Right.
So there again, to rewrite the issue, if the larger debate of destroying the world had the controller be more active in that, you know, like if he was really... If it was more about the Legion against the controllers, not against Tyr and this planet. Like if the controller was like, no, I'm going to blow it up. Here I go. I'm going to look for whatever I can in sort of like desperation. And then they have to go, no, you know, that's not the way. That's not the Legion way. We're fighting the Tarazians. We're fighting the controllers, but we have to find a way to also stop it. Then I think the stakes might have been higher. And it might have also been a little more interesting.
Yeah, and to add on to that, you know, even if this particular controller has his belief system, his worldview has been shaken so much that he's now not the way you describe the controllers, and I totally agree. That's how I've always interpreted the controllers. Then, you know, show us that, give us a little bit more as to why he's behaving in this way.
Did you read Tyr's first appearances?
I did, and I actually like those much better than what I saw here.
So I think one of the things, we might have talked about this before, that's kind of fun to do is there are a lot of podcasts that talk about the Legion from their first appearance onward, right? We decided to start with the Baxter run. But what's kind of nice is I think we're going to start going back to some of those older stories to see how they help us talk about the more current quote-unquote stories, right? So both Eric and I went back and read Superboy starring the Legion of Superheroes 197 and 199 by Carrie Bates and Dave Cockrum. As a way to kind of go, let's see where this guy came from. Oddly enough, he also doesn't have much to do in a lot of those stories. It's more about his gun hand more than anything. But you can see a lot of the connections, like, again, the dialogue of him saying, I am Tyr, the dreaded scourge of my own galaxy, right? And I think the larger takeaway of both of those stories compared to this story, some of it is the artwork. I like the way his gun arm and his gun hand was drawn in those first appearances, and the way Steve Lytle drew them. I do not like the way Greg LaRocque draws it, where it's like almost attached all the way up to his arm, to his shoulder. It almost looks like a He-Man villain as opposed to what they what they came up with before.
Yeah, I had the same thought.
Yeah, it's a little too clunky, a little too action figure like.
Mm.
Um,
Well, maybe that's the secret origin here of of his look. Maybe they were doing a toy line or something, or trying to do a toy line.
he isn't he in the super? Oh, you just. I'm gonna look it up. I think he's part of the superpowers.
Is
line.
he really?
I think so. Let me look it up. Wait, and then the other thing I want to take away, the other reason why I feel like this whole pirate thing works is because when I read the origin story, I said, "Oh, he's Hook. He's Peter Pan's Hook."
Yeah.
I never really thought of that before, but all good pirates have a hook hand or something. So that never hit me before.
Well,
so.
And even better, his hook is sentient, or at least pretty close to it.
Yeah.
So that's an even cooler idea. So yeah, you take this character who has some elements that are really interesting, and then what? When did that Superboy issue come out?
It was 1973.
73, yeah. And so now we're just a little more than 10 years on, and we get this version of Tyr.
See here. Tyr, Superpowers Collection, Power Action Rocket Launch from 1986. That explains everything. This is a toy tie-in. You mother effers.
Yeah.
Because it's designed the same way that they have here, where the arm is super big. It looks like a screwdriver more than anything.
and more angular, really kind of angular. So it culminates in kind of a triangular point, sort of.
Right.
Yeah.
It's less like a cybernetic arm, more like a piece.
And so, can we talk about that? Because that was the one thing that was, besides the fact that Dave Cockrum can draw the hell out of these characters.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, his Tyr looks menacing. I love the way that the colors are done in that particular issue, number 197, his first appearance. But then you got his cybernetic gun that is even better of a character than Tyr himself. Because then in issue 199, that's a whole weird thing where issue 198 was kind of inserted in between. I'm sure it had to do with schedules and getting the issues completed, but then we go to 199, and Tyr is more of a supporting character in basically his own story, and it becomes more about how the Legion, including Superboy, battles this gun, whose powers are incredible. It throws a force field around the Legion headquarters that no one can get in or out of. It even takes over Superboy at one point, and ostensibly it's going to vaporize all the Legionnaires. Of course that doesn't happen, but still it talks to Legionnaires. It has an attitude. It's not just a robot sounding thing. So. What a great character concept, and they barely touch on that in issue 20. Mm-hmm. There's a comment. I forget which page it's on. Oh, here it is.
Ultra Boy.
Yeah, Ultra Boy. Yeah, Ultra Boy says, "Hey, I just noticed your gun hand doesn't do all the talking anymore." And this is as the gun has rocketed off of Tyr's arm and is blasting Ultra Boy, and it says, "Perhaps I serve my master quietly, human, but that only saves my energy for dealing with you." And that's pretty much it. That's all we get. And so we go from this gun, which is obviously far too powerful for this plot in comparison to its debut. But it's if you're a continuity nerd, then you look at this and go, well, then what the heck happened here? Why is this gun not mowing down the Legionnaires?
I think that's Levitz trying to pull away from the whole sentient arm thing, sentient gun thing. Maybe he found that story a little too silly.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because that rang odd. That was odd to me. So
yeah, but it was fun.
No. I meant the downplaying in this issue was odd.
Oh, okay,
Like,
yeah.
it felt like they were purposely saying, no, we're not. We know that it talks, but we're not going to go there because it's 1985. I don't know. Like, I just feel like Levitz was, maybe he wasn't a fan of it. That's the sense that I got.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
like, all right, we're going to acknowledge that it talks, but we're going to try to wean that off of the character, which
Yeah.
I think is dumb. I think I liked his introduction stories, as you said, mostly for the artwork. Some of it for the Legion context, right? Like that was when certain characters got new costumes. 197 is the first time they actually get cover title billing, which was kind of fun to learn. It's a Timberwolf story. It even has a connection to the cartoon, because that one panel where Superboy is like, Timberwolf, you're alive, and everybody's standing around them. The Legion cartoon, when it introduced Timberwolf's origin story, I guess, they had like the same layout, where Superboy was standing in front of him, or it was the two panels, the two images merged, which was kind of nice. So maybe I'll throw that up on the show notes if I find that image. But as a way to connect it to the story, you're right. I find that those two issues are better than this issue, or at least have a little more weight, a little more fun. Really great artwork. I still don't understand why Tyr is a major character, but I guess, well, outside of what I just learned, that he's a friggin' toy.
Well, it was interesting also to consider that he was part of the opening storyline of this series with the Legion of Supervillains, right? And considering, and I guess at the time that I read that back in '84, I kind of knew Tyr was this Legion villain, but I didn't know much about him because I hadn't read his debut issues yet. But given how he's introduced back then as, the scourge of his galaxy, and now he's going to be the scourge of ours, he doesn't come across like that at all within the when he's with the other villains. I can't remember, Peter. I don't think he's even given any kind of spotlight. He's just kind of there in that opening storyline.
There's that one sequence in issue 4 where he's sort of tired of talking, and Nemesis Kid sends him away.
That's right.
Yeah, with Titania and Terrace, and so
but
there's a bit of it. I guess.
But that could have been anybody. Given that bit of dialogue between them, and so he just doesn't come across as that. Now, this is much boasting on his part, as far as we know at that point. But then with the last issue and this one, he runs an entire world that goes around, what's the word I'm looking for? Where you're talking about your pirate thing, plundering. I think that's the word. They go around plunder these worlds, and if there's something there considering that, but it's all for naught. It's just hype. It's puffing their chest and not really delivering on the threat.
Right. Which I would totally be fine if it really was kept in the background like this issue did, if the main debate was stronger.
Yes.
We even made the connection that this issue is titled "To Control the World." The second part of the first two-parter was called "To Destroy a World." So there's some kind of comparison there. Mm-hmm. But it all just kind of wraps up a little too well, like the way it wraps up in the issue where Shrinking Violet's like, "What do you mean, Element Lad? I think we're the best." And you're just like, no, that's too Silver Age for me.
Oh, yeah. I touched on that too. And, she's even given a thumbs up in the panel. And I'm like, what the hell is that? Levitz, did you just forget how to end a story and throw this in?
It's There's a little Star Trek, slapping Spock on the back and everybody laughing. Ha 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 ha. We just almost killed the world with people. Ha 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 ha. Yeah. I was not a fan of the way Phantom Girl was characterized in this story. She was kind of too much of the girlfriend, too much of the, too much of the damsel. Even though she's the one who came up with what to do in the first two-parter, I felt like the way she stumbled on the idea or gave Element the idea of what to do in this issue, she was more like, "Oh, did I do that?" And I didn't buy that. I thought her characterization was a real step back.
Yeah, I can see that, but it's not like she's totally shown as passive in the story. She does have an active role. She tries to take down Tyr's gun.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that doesn't work. She like I said in the synopsis, she and Shrinking Violet do go in and shut down the engines. Although we don't see, it happens off panel, but they do have an active, or she has an active part in the plot itself.
Right.
And I did mention I did like a little bit of that boyfriend girlfriend stuff between Phantom Girl and Ultra Boy,
Mm-hmm.
but I totally see I totally agree with your point. It's a little too Silver Agey. I think it is. Isn't that what you said?
Yeah, or just like the way she's crying. Right. I think the artwork is showing that she's shedding a tear. She's leaving Ultra Boy. In that one panel where she's like, "All right, I'll go back, but you be safe." Oh, tear, tear, tear. And you're right. She goes and puts her hand in the gun. There always was a quality to her that's kind of like, "Hey, I'm just going to do this, and we'll see what happens." Right? Like she's not one of those Legionnaire members that's like, she doesn't have tactics, right? She just does. Not to mean that she's like completely impulsive, but she's a phantom. She lives her life as a phantom. Like when the debris was flying around and they're like, "Be careful," and she's like, "No worries, I'm already a phantom, all good." So I guess there is some quality. There's some kind of like looseness to her, some kind of she's not dark. She's not brooding. She's not a hothead, but she's also not, I don't think she's not like a Valley Girl or anything like that. So when I saw her get a little emotional, and maybe because the stakes for her were high, I guess, because Ultra Boy was getting the beat down, but I don't know. Some of it just rang a little untrue. She's my favorite Legionnaire. So
yeah. And I know that, and so I was really curious how you were going to react to her depiction, and also just the way she's shown, artistically in this issue.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I agree that there's that panel where the two of them, Phantom Girl and Shrinking Violet, are coming out of the engine block, I don't know, or something. And, she says, "At your service, fellas, never send a man to do a delicate chore." and then on the next page, Ultra Boy is saying, "Great work, Tenya. I'm proud of you," as she's consoling him. And she says, "Once we got the idea, it was easy, Joe. I'm only sorry you got roughed up by Tyr." It's just, oh boy, the sexism in this is just too much.
The comment about hers, about the whole man, I mean, that has been shown before. Her and Shadowlass I think we talked about that. Like they're very hard on some of the other male Legionnaires, and I think my speculation was because they both date the two most powerful in the group. So they're like, what do I care what some other guy in this group thinks of me? Because what are they going to do? Fight Mon-El? Fight me? They're gonna have to go through Mon-El, right? So I kind of see that, especially if you mix in the whole, Legionnaire elitism that does happen every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I feel like the way her and Shrinking Violet came about how to solve the first two-parter felt a little more rewarding than the way they stumbled on what I thought was just an easy answer.
Mm-hmm.
It's a ship blow up the engines. Is that really that hard of an answer? It took, 18 pages to figure out? I don't know.
Speaking of the elitism in the Legion, can we talk about that 2-page scene with Brainy and Lightning Lass and Shadow Lass?
Yeah, let me see if I have any more notes about the main plot, and then let's see, because then we can just move on to all the individual ones. There was really no explanation of why Tyr was even on this planet, because last we known he was captured. I just wrote in my notes, well, there wasn't in issue number 8 or 18. When is it? No, it can't be 8. It has to be in issue number 18 when Takron Galtos was being demolished. Maybe he was freed. That there was just no connection to. Mm-hmm. He was captured after the villain war, and now he's on this planet. So
and didn't they say, or did they, or was it implied in some way that this planet was on the edge of our galaxy and moving in? So what? How? When did this happen? Yeah, a bit of a plot oversight, I think, here.
Yeah, from Levitz, who is usually pretty good about those things. And that's it. That's all I have for Tyr.
Oh, I have one more thing before we go on to the individual stuff. I really enjoyed. This is one of the small things that I enjoyed out of this issue. We really got a spotlight on Element Lad in how he uses his abilities, and it's not overt, really, but he comes across. They're showing how powerful he really is. It's basically him taking on all of the Terrazians that are attacking the Legionnaires, while the others, Ultra Boy's preoccupied with Tyr. The girls are off pulling circuits or whatever. But so it's really Element Lad taking on the majority of the the villains here in the story, and not only that, but we also see he gets tired, using his abilities like that, which is I don't think nothing they've really ever touched on, and and once Element Lad shows up to where Tyr is. He takes him out pretty easily by encasing him in that Intertron block of Intertron. So I just really enjoyed that. Seeing one of my favorite Legionnaires being shown, as a bit of a badass, with his power. So that was cool.
All right, so there are a few little interludes here and there, some subplots. What you want to touch on? Wildfire, Dawnstar, and Mon-El, right?
Oh, I just mentioned on that one, there's two things on that I put in my notes. I mentioned in the synopsis how Wildfire, I guess, tried to hug Dawnstar to console her. It's really oddly constructed in that panel. And then she just totally brushes him off. And, maybe that has to do with the events of the Tales issues before it went to reprints, where she had this connection with this other character. I forget what that character's name was on some planetary adventure she was on. But yeah, that was a weird moment, mostly from Wildfire's not point of view, but how he what he does here. That you just don't go grab somebody like that. It's just I guess from our 2019 sensibilities, this does not date well.
Even from 1985 sensibility, I think.
Well, yeah, I agree.
I mean, their story has been going on and off even before that Tales story, and then a little bit after that Tales story, and is this Levitz's way of trying to bring in Dawnstar, give her something to do. She makes mention that her powers really haven't been useful lately, but now she feels confident again. And then to do that in front of another Legionnaire, the way Wildfire did, it's another moment that I was kind of like, why? What was that needed for? Other than just to say, right, this is the status quo between Wildfire and Dawnstar. Unless they're going to do something with it down the road, which I don't remember, and well, I do remember of something, but I don't think that's coming up soon. So maybe we'll have to wait and see if my thought about where it does eventually go, if it does come out within the next year. But the whole sequence was kind of, and even to bring those characters, like to get more characters to go after the Lost Legionnaires, which she wasn't able to do the first time, right? That's the whole reason why she wound up on that exile planet, is because they were looking for the Lost Legionnaires, and for some reason she wound up there. So it's like a story beat that Levitt's already hit, but now he actually gets them to the Lost Legionnaires this time, but they don't really do anything anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that bottom panel there on that page, you know, and I mentioned this also, Monel quips, even though half the time we fly off on rescue missions like this, Legionnaires in danger take care of their own troubles quite nicely. I'm like, wow. Then why are you even out there, Mon? Come on. I just love it's to me it's I read that as a bit of meta commentary on Levis's part, because you know he's the one engineering this, and yet he has his characters commenting on it too. So I kind of like that one. But yeah, they were pretty well worthless when they got there.
So then we have a slight tease with the no, let's go to the Sunboy and Gigi first. Mm-hmm. So this is like one of the first cutaways from the main story. Sunboy and Gigi have been having this this feud between the two of them because of some hurt feelings or whatever. You know, rightfully so on Gigi's part, because she feels like Sunboy has been toying with him, and then Sunboy got and then she plays a trick on him that involved Colossal Boy and Yira in a backup tale from Tales, and then he got revenge on her by sending her off with the subs in the sub special that we did in one of the Tales episodes. So he even says, you know, maybe are we ready to have a truce? But then, so they're back to flirting again, or he is, I should say. And she says, I thought you and Shrinking Violet were an item. And he says, only when the mood strikes. And I thought, oh, okay. So we saw that back in issue number 13, where he was playing D&D with, I think, Starboy. And Shrinking Violet comes up behind him and shoves her hand in his shirt to distract him. And then that was the last we saw of that. Mm-hmm. And now we get this moment, and it's not a major subplot. It's just an ongoing characterization thing, I guess. But I thought it was kind of interesting because I don't think Sunboy is one to lie, because he clearly is the Brad Pitt of the future universe, you know. So I don't think he would lie that he has this on again, off again fling with Shrinking Violet. Because for number one, he could easily be called on it, right? She could easily just go, hey, Shrinking Violet, what are you doing? And she was like, we ain't doing anything. But I don't know. It's a weird sort of takeaway. It's a weird kind of adult button to hit. Mm-hmm. But there was something about it that was kind of interesting in that revelation that Sunboy and Shrinking Violet might have actually had some kind of fling.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too, because there was a letter that I read where they were complaining about this depiction of Sunboy as a womanizer.
Oh, right, a gigolo, I think they called.
Did they? Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's interesting. I don't really have an issue with how this is being shown, how it's progressing. Mm-hmm. But I like the way that you put it. You know, it's kind of a weird adult button to put in this. But you know, this to me it makes sense. You know, you get a bunch of teenagers together, they're gonna, you know, some of them are gonna hook up,
right,
and not have a lasting relationship, and
right,
and that's rarely something that they play with in the Legion.
And maybe it's like shorthand for Levitz to sort of say, right, this isn't the Shrinking Violet you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and nor is this the Sunboy that we sort of know.
Yeah.
This is Levitz. He does this. He adds these little character beats to each one to give them something. They're not just. I was complaining about the generic villains. They're not just generic Legionnaires. They have little quirks to them and little pieces that you can hook into and say, oh yeah, Sunboy's that one. Even if it skirts the idea that they're a one-dimensional character.
Mm-hmm. And there's some fun Easter eggs in that sequence too. There's a guy with a helmet that looks like Peacemaker's helmet.
Yep.
Yeah. Albert Einstein apparently is walking around.
Okay. Yes.
And then the Interlac there, the Lawrence Welk bubble mat.
Oh, okay.
Did you see that?
I've kind of given up on translating Interlac. That's really cute. And isn't in that same panel where Einstein's walking around, the guy that's kind of in the lower left, he kind of reminds me of Sean Connery, and I forget the movie he did where he was like, it was like a science fiction type movie. I don't know. I'm probably stretching that one a little bit.
Oh, you're right. It's the movie that the Superman villain Vartox is.
Yes,
is based
yeah,
off
exactly. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah,
it does look like that. That's crazy. And then we get another interlude that leads up to the Sensa Girl thing, where Shadow Lass is trying to get Brainiac 5 to come out of his hiding because he is deputy leader, and since Element Lad is off planet, Brainiac 5 is the one that should be in charge. So she's trying to bring him out, but Lightning Lass, uncharacteristically, I think, kind of says, he's crazy. What do you expect? And he doesn't deserve our time, whatever she said.
You won't catch me worrying about him. Where did that come from?
I have no idea.
Lightning Lass is certainly coming across. In fact, her and Shrinking Violet seem to have a similar tone to them, a bit hard-edged. That is, at least with Lightning Lass, it seems weird. Maybe she's dealing with some, I don't know, inadequacies, feeling inadequate as a member of the Legion. I don't know, or coming back into it after she left. But we're not given anything like that. So I'm left to trying to supply some sort of reason for this character turn.
Yeah, and I think it just comes down to this is bad writing. This is one of those. I really do. I think this is one of those moments that pulled me out of the issue, and I was like, "This is why I don't like this issue." People, they aren't acting the way Levitz has been setting them up. For someone like her to come back to the Legion and be kind of very rah-rah, and she's got control of her powers, and you would think I think she would be a little more sympathetic or have some empathy to this situation. Mm-hmm. And if anything, it would be Shadow Lass that would be the one, I think, that would be colder.
And yes, and we have touched on this in previous episodes and with previous issues because I think I made a comment about her remarks regarding Brainy, and then that was flipped because then she was being supportive of him, and that's mostly why I wanted to touch on this scene, because she's still in that she seems to be concerned about Brainy. Right. And she's I guess maybe Levitz just needed someone to be a sounding board to Shadow Lass, a kind of or a mirror perhaps, or a reverse image is I guess where my addled brain is going with this analogy, but as a contrast is what I'm trying to say to Shadow Lass's apparent empathy for Brainy, and for some reason Lightning Lass was that.
Yeah.
But but again, in regards to Lightning Lass, even if this is the new status quo with her, what changed? We weren't shown that, right. And maybe
I hope
maybe
it's not.
Yeah, I do too. But if this is, then I hope that we get some sort of explanation as to why she's now behaving this way. Even if it's just she she had a fight with Timberwolf again, and and that just happened, and now she's just angry and reacting. That at least that's something that is familiar to me. I understand that, and that would make sense in that moment anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to ask you this particular scene here with Shadowlass, because she's really making an effort now. I mean, and maybe it's just because, like you said, he's the deputy leader. He should be doing something, and Shadowlass, it could be that Shadowlass is just trying to get him to do his duty. But the way that she's talking, it doesn't appear to me that's the reason that she's there. It seems more like she's there to be supportive and help him through this situation that whatever he's going through.
Mm-hmm.
And she has, she says, Lightning Lass says, I think he's a little nuts even when the medicos consider him sane, which, harsh. And Shadowlass even calls her out. That's a nasty remark, Lightning Lass. It's not his fault. He's had periods of instability. You know how brilliant he is. And I thought, what is there something going on here?
I don't think
Not
so.
buying that one.
No, I think it's really just lead up for the next page, and these are the two characters that he decided to use. I mean, Shadowlass is a little brusque to Computo. She's like, who asked you? So again, that
but
feels
nobody
right
likes
to her.
Nobody likes Computo.
Nobody likes Computo
except Brainy.
So I feel like Shadowlass is fine, and I'm even okay with her sort of defending Brainy. But I think it's just Levitz trying to shorthand the situation, just say, okay, I need to get to this next page. All right, I'll give it to these two characters, and they're just saying things that have been said before. Yeah.
Like I said, I was trying to find little things that would make this issue a little more interesting to me, and so I perhaps went a little too far.
No,
but
I do.
But how
do
cool would
all
it
the
be? How cool would that be if something developed between Shadowlass and Brainiac 5? And then you got that love triangle thing, which the Legion loved to do back in the day. I mean, they still kind of are here a little bit, but that would be just fascinating.
And I freely admit that I don't know if there's a previous Legion story where Light Lass and Brainy went up against each other, or had some argument, or it's kind of like when Wildfire and Dream Girl go at it. I totally get it, because every time I look back at like an older issue, Wildfire is constantly digging at Dream Girl, so there could totally be animosity there, and I love that that's still sort of carried on. But I don't know that about every Legionnaire, because I don't have those issues memorized well enough. Mm-hmm. So all I can really say is it just feels like, I don't know, it just feels like Levitz needed two people to talk about Brainy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about Brainy just a little bit here on that next page. Why is he so concerned? Who are you, Sensor Girl? He says, and then a few panels later, as he's looking at an image of Sensor Girl, he says, Dream Girl wore a mask once. So did Supergirl. So we get an explanation, more of an explanation as to why he's obsessing here, and I love how, and this is where I'm going to talk a little bit about the art. I love how LaRocque and Malstead are depicting Brainy's face here. He's looking almost a little gaunt, and his hair is more disheveled than usual. So I really like that. His eyes are kind of shadowed and whatnot. So I thought they did a really good job there, kind of showing you how how he's feeling through his outward appearance.
Yeah, and the choice of the last panel there, where we're looking at the back of Sensor Girl as she's either sensing him through the wall, or she's in a totally other different place in the headquarters, or whatever. There's some. First of all, that page is, to me, you could tear that page out, and that is the best thing of the issue, or it's the thing that you take away from the issue. In our larger discussion, I feel like, okay, there it is. That's the thing that's going to connect us to the next couple of issues, right? Mm-hmm. but I do. I like the way that she's standing. And Brainy's kind of answering what the readers said about issue number was it 13 or 14, where Duo Damsel was like, oh my god, we've never had a masked Legionnaire before. And then a whole bunch of letter writers were like, yeah, you did. So it's kind of like Levitt's kind of maybe correcting himself there. Even to the other connection that you pointed out from a previous issue, that page is all black. It's a black page. Everything else is white, white background. So thematically, that to me is the smartest page in this book, because it's like, yes, see, that's what this Legion series is about. Stuff like that, you know. And knowing that the Who is Sensor Girl mystery is really starting to ramp up.
More art stuff, if you don't mind. We got that first splash page showing Ultra Boy getting blasted. It's really simple, but I just really like the energy of it. I mean, literally, there's energy being shown on the page, but Joe's getting blasted.
He got 2 back-to-back splash pages, this issue and last issue.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I'm not going to complain about that. That scene with Dawnstar and the other 2, you've got Dawnstar there. There's this nice kind of spotlight image of her, where her wings are overlapping the other panels of the page. And then there's another image of her as well later on in the issue, where they're... it says not too distant from Taraz, and she's just kind of flying up and away from us in the panel, but it takes up half the page, and we're kind of seeing again her wings. They're being shown kind of really big. But I don't know. I really like how LaRocque he seems to be expanding his repertoire a bit in showing the characters and how things are laid out on the page. A few pages earlier, there's an image of Phantom Girl also overlapping a couple panels there, and her being shown front and center. So, I just, for some reason, this issue that really was evident to me. And maybe he's been doing that all along, and for some reason I haven't noticed. But this one, he did it. Either he did it a lot, and that's why I noticed, or he's actually starting to do it. I don't recall now. And I wanted to ask you, Peter, how did you, besides the way that Phantom Girl is characterized, given her involvement in this issue, how do you like the way that she's being depicted artistically?
There are a couple places where I'm like, okay, that's cool. I feel like she's one of those Legionnaires, and she doesn't get it, but I think she needs an upgrade, costume-wise, look-wise. She's a little too much of a holdover at this point. I don't know if it's because of the bell-bottoms or... I mean, she's had minor tweaks here and there, but of all the Legionnaires, I feel like, boy, she's been kind of static for a long time now.
Mm-hmm. Well, you contrast that to the very next page that I'm talking about, and you have Lightning Lass in her new costume. I mean, we've seen that for a while now. But then Shadow Lass herself, I mean, that's a great update to her look,
right?
Including her hair. And talk about static, with and I think you mentioned this last episode regarding Phantom Girl's ponytails.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's still rocking those.
And I get it; it's her thing, right? Like that's it's shorthand so you know who right. is who.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. On the flip side, I do not like the way LaRocque draws Shrinking Violet's hair.
Yeah,
it looks staticky,
really flat.
Yeah, it doesn't have that cute, short, cropped hair style that she's been having. It just looks like a mop it's on some level. A short mop, and just not a fan of it. Not a fan of that. Yeah. There is stuff. Dawnstar is one of his favorite characters, so I think he does larger images well, like the splash page, like you said. It's comfortable to read. As you mentioned way back, Paul Levitt said that he may not be as innovative as Steve Lytle, but he's a true soldier, and I feel like that's what we're getting.
Shall we move on to the backup story? Are we done with this one?
Yeah, I'm done with I'm done with that issue. No, done with that chapter. Let's make mention real quick 2 things. From Tales 345 that reprints both of these stories, as a matter of fact, they correct the date. And now I'm wondering if they did it because it was a year later. But the opening splash page with Ultra Boy in the Baxter run says 2985. But the backup tale in this story says 2986. So in the Tales reprint, the opening splash of Ultra Boy says 2986. And then let me look to see, what do they do in the backup tale? It also says 2986. So I feel like even though this issue came out at the end of 1985, I think it is right that the story should take place in 2986. So I wonder if that's why they corrected it in the Tales issue, but it's just a minor thing.
I had not even noticed that.
Yeah. I mean, if the 2 stories have 2 different dates, it's like, why do they have 2 different dates? I don't get that.
Yeah.
Especially if the one is supposed to take place at Halloween.
Exactly.
Is it a year in the future? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, if you're gonna date yourself in that way, where it's a touchstone being Halloween, yeah, you need to have your dates right.
Right, and the backup tale takes place during or right after the first part, so because they make mention about, Element Lad is finally returning, so unless it's just a one-off comment. Yeah, so backup tale featuring White Witch and Dream Girl, Night of Madness, Paul Levitz, Keith Giffen, Mike DiCarlo, John Costanza, Carl Gafford, Karen Berger. Tale about 2 sisters and one sister trying to make the other sister have fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's cute. It's a cute story. I don't really have a lot to say about it, but it's cute.
That's funny. I wrote that in my notes. Cute, nothing much story. Has some fun cosplay cameos towards the end. but I really did enjoy the glimpse into the off-duty life of the Legionnaires, and the fact that these are sisters hanging out, and Dream Girl was trying to get her sister to relax and have some fun. I really dug that. It's a very human moment between the characters. I do have a problem though with the punchline of the story, but
well, she gets her to go to a Halloween party being thrown by Colossal Boy and Yira, and we see some other Legionnaires there like Star Boy and Bouncing Boy. Before we get to the end of it, I liked how they touched on the notion of their powers, and White Witch is sort of concerned. Why are you always fainting? And she's like, look, that's just the way that I was taught, and I don't talk about your magic powers. A little bit of sibling rivalry there, maybe,
yeah.
Or just a way to tell readers to, that's just sort of how these powers are going to go. We don't want to make them too definable because then we might get locked. And we've seen Dream Girl. She's able to predict, 2 seconds into the future, or she's able to kind of predict, certain events that might happen in the near future. And, when you start to solidify the powers, then you could get yourself into a corner, depending on what kind of story you're going to write. But I did like that conversation. I kind of enjoyed, like as you said, the way they talk to each other.
Well, the whole fainting thing is also just a ruse.
Oh, right.
This whole setup to get her to the party is one big gag.
Right.
Well intended, I guess, but Dream Girl certainly was playing into it hard.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're right. It gives us a good line from White Witch, though, where she says, where they're looking at that monster. She goes, "I thought such monsters had no place on Earth with all its science and so little magic left since the ancient Exodus." And it's just a throwaway line, but it does mean something to the Legion history, especially later.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like that little bit. What was your thing about the ending?
Oh, just so we get Dream Girl gets White Witch there to the party. As you said, Colossal Boy is throwing a Halloween party, which another tiny little detail because he's from Earth, and so Halloween would be a thing. So I like that, but a Bouncing Boy says the last couple panels. Besides, we had to get you to attend, pretty lady. Why, Bouncing Boy? What would Halloween be without our very own favorite witch? I mean, boy, talk about a kind of cringeworthy moment, but like I said, I did like the different costumes. We get, I believe that's the Thing, and his forehead's kind of poking out there in the background. Somebody looks kind of like Batman. We have a Mr. Spock in a suit. Someone's dressed up in a Superman costume, Wonder Woman costume. There's probably some others in here that I'm not. Oh, I really enjoyed how, considering it is a Halloween story, that Dream Girl is now she's met up with Starboy there, and she's wearing a green witch mask, which is very reminiscent of Lucy from the Halloween Peanut special, the Great Pumpkin episode.
Oh,
so I thought that was really funny. Bouncy Boy's dressed up like I guess a tomato. Oh, and do we see in that one page the big reveal that this is a Halloween party? Peter, is that the ambush bug's antenna popping up there?
Oh yeah, it sure is.
Yeah. So and also in that same page, isn't that the kind of gray looking creature in the background behind Colossal Boy and Yura? Isn't that a character from the Omega Men?
It looks like Brute, but then there's another guy similar on the next panel.
Oh, you're right.
He looks he has horns.
Yeah.
So. And that Spock guy, I think it looks more like Jim Shooter wearing Spock ears.
Oh my God, that's great.
Which I could see Keith Giffen doing.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's a cute little tale. I mostly enjoy it for the sisters back and forth stuff.
Right.
Oh, what do you think of DeCarlo inking Giffen here?
It works. I actually didn't pick up on it, to tell you the truth. Which is good, right?
Mm-hmm.
For me and DeCarlo, that's good.
It just his inking, to me, it kind of tones down Giffen's Giffenness a bit. Maybe it makes it a little more palatable to some. I've read many letters to the editor here in these issues where people were complaining about Giffen's change in style, and so you get a hint of that in here, but it's definitely toned down. I think mostly due to DeCarlo's efforts.
But boy, does it feel like Legion when he does those panels where he's showing like the city or like a cityscape. It's like so futuristic and just so familiar. It's so good.
Yeah. I love it. And he's also, there's that scene where, at the beginning of the story, Dream Girl's like, what's she want to do? She wants to get into a bath or something. Yeah. Can I borrow your tub tonight? And then she starts removing her clothes, her uniform. And it gets a little risque here in a couple of these panels, I thought, for this time in Legion history and publication history, I guess. Giffen's really kind of pushing the boundaries just a tiny bit here with Dream Girl, but
All right, so that's that issue, yeah.
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 And now the main event.
One other thing about that issue, they're starting to show the next issue cover on the back inside cover, which I thought is kind of cool. We'll have to see if that continues.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and this issue is the one where the promised introduction to Greg LaRocque is in,
right,
in the letter column. So
right.
I think we talked about that before
mm-hmm.
when he first came on, but here it actually appears in this issue. So.
Okay, yeah. Let's go to Legion of Superheroes around the DC Universe at this time, starting with Who's Who, number 13. We have a whopping 7, I think, or more. We have League of Super Assassins. We have Legion Academy. Then we get to Legion of Substitute Heroes, Legion of Superheroes, Legion of Super Villains. Oh, no, more than 7. Legion of Superheroes Headquarters, Legion of Super Pets, Lightning Lad, Lightning Lass, Lightning Lord. That's 10. And we could even possibly talk about Crypto and Lady Quark. So it's a total of 12 different ones we have to burn through here. So.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I'm going to just start on the cover real quick. George Perez is back on the cover, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
He'll do a whole bunch more. Lightning Lad front and center there,
mm-hmm.
talking to Lois Lane, which is great.
That.
But he's also connected to Lightning Lord and Lightning Lass through their individual colored lightning bolts.
Mm.
And I believe they're zapping Micro Lad, but it could also be a miscolored Olvir, because Olvir's not on the cover. But I guess they went and colored it to be Micro Lad. Also about the cover, if it's a team group shop on the inside, but some of the individual members have their own entries, they don't get on the cover. So you see a lot of like the Legion of Supervillains or the League of Super Assassins, but you're not going to see Block because he has his own entry way back in issue 3 or 4, whatever that is. But there are some other characters from some of the other groups that aren't on the cover but don't even have an entry. So, for instance, like Antenna Boy, one of the subs, or Double Header. They're not on the front cover, but they're also not. They don't have an entry. I think Double Header gets an entry in one of the updates, or maybe that's in the Legion Who's Who. So, but still, the cover's gorgeous. No Legion Academy member on the cover, which is unfortunate. So at some point, I guess Perez was like, I can't draw all these characters. So, all right, where do you want to start? Let's jump around. Which one do you want to start with? You want to start with the biggie, Legion of Superheroes?
Oh, sure.
Let's do that. Legion of Superheroes. And all things about these Who's Who, it's always fun to kind of think about, what did you learn? What'd you take away? So what'd you think? What'd you think of that group shot? What do you think of that entry?
We get a bunch of headshots across this 2-page spread of the Legion, and then we get the group shot in the middle. And interesting that they have Supergirl in there. Was the first thing that drew my eye. Now, obviously, she was a member, but it's the way that she looked as she did when she died in the Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that there's any other kind of oddity about this, and it's not necessarily an oddity. It drew my attention, considering at this time in DC publication she was not around anymore.
Yeah, I mean, she was dead, but she wasn't quite written out of existence just yet, because Burned Superman hadn't hit yet.
That's true. You're right.
Right. So she still would be. I mean, it's the same thing with Superboy, right? Like they still are around as DC tries to figure out what the heck they're doing. So
the only thing of note, really, I mean, considering this is a big one. This is the Legion, but there was a note in here, a comment about the Legion. They're referred to as, quote, unquestionably the most powerful team in the DCU.
Hmm.
I thought that's really cool that they acknowledge this. For a bunch of future teenagers who, for the most part, they have one ability each, but collectively they are a force to be reckoned with. And I don't think that we ever really get to see that spotlighted. I can't think of a story where the Legion arrives and they save the day, in a more or less cosmic sense. Because
Right.
usually it's the Justice League, right? And they seem to get all the accolades, the attention. But here it is, black and white. DC is saying the Legion is the most powerful team.
Do you agree?
Oh, hell yeah.
And we've said it before, right? Like, if they're going to be representative of their culture or their people, especially if they come from a people that all share the same power, they should be the ultimate example of that people, of that power.
Yeah.
If your name is Sunboy, you should be the one person in the universe that has, kind of like total control of whatever that means. Or Invisible Kid, or Shadow Lass, like they're Lightning Lad. Their names kind of speak their powers in a very Stan Lee kind of way, and it's like they should be the ultimate.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of this image being drawn by LaRoche and not Lytle?
Yeah, that was interesting. From a publishing standpoint, it makes sense. LaRoche is on the book, so of course he should be the representative here, I guess. But yeah, I would have. I guess I will admit I would have liked to have seen Lytle do this, but we've been seeing him do a bunch of Legion stuff up to this point.
Right. So it's good. I mean, for LaRoche, I think it's good. I think it's a nice, kind of shows all the characters well, and I just when I flipped to it again, I was like, oh right, it's not Lytle. It's LaRoche. That's interesting. There's obviously something I really want to say about two of the characters, but we can't say it just yet. We'll save it for later, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Okay. Yeah, I think it's it. Where else? Where do you want to go next?
Oh, I don't.
Let's do the villains then, because
Okay.
there is
Lytle.
Lytle.
That's a good.
There we
that's
go.
a good way.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. See this. I love this.
That's
Similar
beautiful.
construction. You got the faces on either side, and then you got a group shot.
Mm-hmm.
And this, just reminds me how much I really like Lytle's Legion work.
Yeah.
And boy, does Sun Emperor get the spotlights. Why? Why does he? He's not that interesting of a character.
Like Nemesis Kid is all the way in the background.
Yeah. Well, he's dead. So.
Yeah.
My notes for the Legion of Supervillains. The first thing I wrote was, "Who started us on this journey?" With issue number 1. And then there's something about Saturn Queen. Yeah, Saturn Queen in here. I need to find it.
Is it on several occasions, adult versions of the Legion of Supervillains members have appeared claiming to be time travelers from a few decades in the future?
Yes. Yeah, these include Cosmic King, Lightning Lord, and Saturn Queen, the last of whom the Legionnaires have not yet met as a contemporary. And of course, I immediately went back to your theory that I think was then corroborated in later issues about Cosmic King.
Right.
And so I didn't even consider the other two, and Saturn Queen especially. So I thought it was interesting that they specifically pointed that out for her.
Right.
So now I want to go back and kind of look at those other appearances and compare that to the future versions of these characters, which it's all a weird situation that they've kind of painted themselves into a corner about. But it is time travel, so it's all wibbly wobbly and all that.
Yeah. Which could be why a lot of people thought Sensor Girl was Saturn Queen.
that would have been a really interesting twist. Or
Yeah, right?
could be a really interesting twist. I mean,
Yes.
shoot.
Yeah, think of it. I mean, if she was revealed as Censor Girl, and then she becomes a member of the Legionnaires, but then in the future she becomes a member of this Legion of Supervillains. Right?
What a cool idea.
Yeah, so now I understand why people think it's her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good image. There's a couple of the Legion of Supervillains that show up on the cover, but some that do not. Cosmic King, Nemesis Kid, Saturn Queen, Tyr, they all have their individual Who's Who entry, so they're not on the cover. But Ovir is not on the cover, neither is Tarek the Mute or Terrace. So I'm not sure why those were left off.
And notice since this issue is featuring Tyr, he's got this image of him. He's got his old gun hand back.
Right.
So
more Dave Cockrum look.
Yeah. So Steve Little's going, yeah, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good image. It really is a good image. I think it really shows. Like, look at the way Liaison has that just very straight energy coming out from him.
Mm-hmm.
Very different from some of the other ways that energy is being shown. I miss this artwork. All right, let's go to Legion of Substitute Heroes. And this one drawn by, it's not listed, drawn by Keith Giffen, and I don't know who the inker is because it's not listed.
Oh, weird. Yeah, you're right. It's not.
Yeah. But that's a great image. Highly evocative of the sub special cover. We got Polar Boy in his Steve Lytle suit. Love the different heights, love the different attitudes. Just so good.
Yeah, I agree. This is... back in the day, I didn't care for how Giffen looked like this, and I mentioned this before, but now, man, this is awesome. This is Legion to me now.
Right. A couple of these characters don't show up. Well, yeah, I think so even what is it? Infectious Lass doesn't have her own entry. Doubleheader and Antenna Boy or Porcupine Pete. So like at least those characters should have showed up on this cover, but they don't.
Mm.
I really don't have much to say in terms of like the text or anything.
I had here, just a commentary. It's interesting that the subs became more popular than the Academy members. Because you got those two groups there, and they're kind of the same-ish kind of groupings. They're the wannabes. They're the potential others.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, for some reason, Giffen really glommed onto the subs, and we've talked about this before on that Tales episode, featuring was it a Tales, Peter?
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember now. The Tales episode where we talked about that Legion of Substitute Heroes special. I don't really care for how the subs are treated as slapstick comedy relief type thing, but it certainly made an impression, I think, on a lot of comic book readers. And so, despite that, the subs have certainly become, I think, an integral part of the Legion, not only just because of the previous publication history, but the way that Giffen really promoted them in the way that he did.
Yeah.
And so, and the Academy members, while we have talked about them because they've made these appearances, they don't really have much to do in the Legion stories, whereas the subs, I think, have a little bit more to do. So.
Oh, sure.
And
I mean,
go ahead.
I look at that team image and I'm like, why don't they have an ongoing series?
Well, did we talk about this? Do we think that sub special was perhaps a toe in the water to test that possibility?
I don't know, because at the end of it, Polar Boy was like, I'm disbanding the group. So
that's true. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they can rewrite that. Did they mention in here? Because at one point, the subs were even joined by Starboy after he was expelled, and by Dream Girl before they both rejoined the Legion. I was curious if there were any stories showing some sort of allegiance by Starboy or Dreamgirl to the subs. It's almost like, yeah, you guys took us in when we were at our lowest, but now that we're back with, the popular kids, you can kind of forget that we were part of your group.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the Academy, let's go to the Academy then. Yep. One of my favorite Legion concepts.
Yes. Something of which they did not do enough of, or enough with.
Right.
There could have been a whole... Oh, they should have just done a whole backup series on the Legion Academy members and what that process is like, and interacting with the other Legionnaires, and just lots of possibilities here.
Yeah. So a couple of things about this entry: Dan Jurgens and Greg Theakston doing an amazing mashup of Giffen and Kirby, I think. There's a lot of images that look like I feel like Jediah Ricane, Power Boy, is that his name? I think he looks kind of Kirby-ish, and yet Crystal Kid looks kind of Keith Giffen-ish, and I don't know. It's a nice little mashup there. Mm-hmm. My first Legion comic was Legion of Superheroes 304, featuring the Academy, so that's probably why I have a real big soft spot. I especially like Nightwind and Crystal Kid and Laurel Kent. I just like their designs, and Nightwind just seems to have so much potential in the way she looks. Mm-hmm. First appeared Adventure Comics 371, Jim Shooter, Kurt Swan. It was Chemical King's first appearance as well. And then they had a second story in 372, which was the first appearance of this supervillains, where Colossal Boy kind of, I don't know if he got kicked off the team or something, but then he goes and tries to start his own school, which is where you get Tarek the Mute and the Legion of Supervillains. But at that time, the Academy was just a part of the headquarters. It wasn't like a separate thing. And it was a little more militaristic, I think, as I was flipping through that issue.
So in here, they identify two characters, but they're listed as unknown. And
one is that little creature that was on the subs image. And he's also on the cover of the Legion of Substitute Heroes special. You asked about him at one point,
Yeah. What is... Do you know, or we're jumping the timeline, but is that something that gets resolved at some point? Because I don't know anything about this character.
Me either.
And the other one it kind of looks like Quizlet, but it's not.
Right.
Or, I don't know if this is just, if it's supposed to be Quizlet, and for some reason I can't imagine how it could be, because we already know Quizlet's here.
Yeah.
So what is this, and why is it so similar looking to Quizlet? Why would they do that? Anyway, I have all these questions now.
Well, I think we've seen that little floating guy before, maybe even in that Legion of Superheroes 304. I've seen him before. He's sort of like in the background. I just sort of thought he was like a headquarter service bot, or something like that.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought about that monkey-looking creature.
Yeah.
As well. He was just kind of a background character, but here he's clearly identified as an Academy member. So,
yeah, he always eats technology. Like you see him eating the computer thing or whatever.
Oh yeah, maybe I thought it was one of the Academy members' pets or something. Yeah, weird. Now I'm very intrigued. I want to know more.
There is an actual Montauk Point at the end of Long Island. I just learned that today.
Oh really?
I don't know. Yeah, I looked it up, and it had so it's on the eastern tip of Long Island. It has a lighthouse. The lighthouse was completed in 1796. I think they said it was like the fourth lighthouse ever built in the United States. And the whole Montauk Point place, the little, lighthouse and whatever else was around it, was like one of the first public projects ever in the United States, shortly after George Washington was declared president. So, it's a real point, which kind of makes sense now when you look at the building. The Legion Academy building looks like a lighthouse.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, see, it all kind of comes back. That's awesome.
Wasn't it also referenced in a Billy Joel song?
Oh, it could be. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think so.
Downeaster Alexa.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. So I love that. I love everything about that. And it does make me want to read. Speaking of the stories about the Academy, Phil Jimenez drew a whole bunch of Legion Academy chapters in adventure comics. Like in the 2000s or late 2000s, I think. And he added some more characters, which I've never read. So one of these days I'll read that.
Oh, I did read some, if not all of those issues.
Okay.
And I mostly enjoyed it for the Jimenez art.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, the focus on the Academy. There was one of the Legion characters appeared in that, and I thought that was probably the most beautiful rendition of that character. But I'm blanking on who that was. Anyway.
How about the League of Super Assassins?
Yeah, here we go. So I have a special or a soft spot in my heart for these characters because their second appearance in Legion or Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes 254 was my very first Legion comic.
Yeah.
And I like these characters. I was always wanting to know more about why Block came to join the Legion after being part of this group. And then, of course, they appeared as members of Legion of Supervillains in the opening storyline of the Baxter run. So, yeah, I have a long history with these characters. I would like to know more about them. I did go back and read that first issue, 253, in which they appear, and there's not a whole lot there. They're being manipulated, and they unquestionably become adversaries of the Legion. So unfortunately, there's just so much potential there that they just kind of glossed over, but whatever. Yeah.
This art by Joe Staton and Dick Giordano, yes. Who the team was created by Jerry Conway and Joe Staton, and the first time they appeared, the cover was by Dick Giordano, so that's kind of cool.
I love that cover.
Yeah.
Well, my cover 254. That was just an awesome cover. But yeah, Dick Giordano was great. None
of the character title logos are all that fascinating.
Mm-mm.
League of Super Assassins is very similar to when it first appeared on the cover. Super Villains, not that interesting. Legion of Substitute Heroes, we've seen that before. So none of these are sort of like, those are great. What I do like about this team shot or this Who's Who entry, because it did make me research a whole bunch of things. First off, that Tharok is part of their origin story. That's kind of cool. Tharok of the Fatal Five as the villainous Darkman, right? Is that supposed to be the same? Yeah. That they are from the planet Dryad, but I thought only Block was I thought all the people from Dryad. So are they like orphans, or how did they get there? Were there other people? That's stuff that I don't know. And I don't know if those first two stories even talk about that.
Yeah.
Why are there other humanoids on that planet? It's interesting that they are a league and not a legion. I just think that's kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's not Legion of Super Assassins, it's League of Super Assassins. So it's a nice little change up there. I guess maybe because that's a Jerry Conway creation. And then there's the whole lore that supposedly, while the Imperial Guard was being created over at Marvel as a Legion analog, some people speculated that this was the League of Super Assassins at DC was supposed to be an X-Men analog. And there's some back and forth about whether that's true or not, but you can certainly see like Nutrax looks like a mix of Professor X and Cyclops. Silver Slasher looks like a mix of like Wolverine and Banshee because apparently she spins. And it starts to get a little more nebulous. Lazon could be Sunfire. Mistmaster, I guess you could say, somebody said it's like a mix of Storm and Nightcrawler because of the puff of smoke that Nightcrawler creates. And I was like, that's a little stretching it.
Yeah, exactly. I actually thought, and it only occurred to me when I was reading this entry, maybe it has more to do with Jack Kirby's New Gods. Because Nutrax to me is like what's his
Mobius.
name? Yeah,
Morbius.
uh,
Metron.
Yes, exactly.
Jesus.
Yeah, and maybe Titania is like a big Barda. Lazon's more like a light ray, perhaps. It kind of breaks down after that, but yeah, I think mostly it was Nutrax where it was like, ooh, that looks like Metron to me.
Right. So, unless somebody has it written or somebody has it from like an interview or some kind of article, that information is a little iffy, I guess. Shall we go to the headquarters and the Super Pets all on one page there?
Yeah, it's a pity they put these two together because I had a really hard time reading the call-outs for the Legion headquarters. It's just my eyesight's not all that great anymore. Yeah. But and we've already seen the Legion. We've already gotten something like this in some other Legion issues.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still nice to see. I always love this kind of stuff where you get to see the headquarters and, oh, this is where they put this thing and this is where they do that thing and whatnot. The one thing I did learn, however, is that the top portion of the Legion headquarters can serve as a spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
And I wondered did we actually ever get to see that?
No.
Oh,
I don't think we did.
That's too bad. It's kind of like the, which we did get to see, but like the captain's yacht on Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
There was always rumored that the Enterprise D had this yacht, and we of course didn't get to see that until one of the later movies. But anyway.
Yeah, I really didn't have too much to say about either of them.
Oh, you didn't? Like with the Legion of Super Pets? I mean, come on. Out of all these entries, Peter, I would now want to go back and read all of the appearances of the Legion of Super Pets because they talk about how the Legion was new, something about brain globes, and that's why the Legion of Super Pets could save the day. And there's something about a purple sun. I mean that's all that old kind of Silver Age craziness. I kind of like that stuff.
I think I read a story or two from the Legion of Super Pets in one of like a Best of Blue Ribbon Digest reprint,
Mm-hmm.
one of those little digests. And they acted the same way as the Legionnaires, where they're like, no, Prody, you can't join us because you're just a blob or whatever, And then they send him off to do all these missions. It's just like the whole Superboy thing again.
Yeah.
And then like they think he dies and they're like, oh my God, he was the greatest of us all. It's so Silver Age. I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. So they're fine. They're fine, I guess.
Do you want to talk about Crypto since we're talking about the Legion of Super Pets?
Yeah, we can talk about Crypto. And that artwork, by the way, Kurt Swan and Bob Smith by the Legion of Super Pets. Crypto. Okay, what do you have for Crypto?
Well, where is Crypto? Oh, here he is.
Colleen Duran and Rick Magyar.
Yeah, he gets a full page. So the Legion of Super Pets gets like a third of a 2-page spread, and Crypto gets a whole page.
It's Crypto.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I got out of this Crypto is that he had his alter ego. He had an alter ego.
Right.
I guess I didn't realize that. I never knew that. It called Skip.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, that's interesting. Also, it would be really cool. I don't know how much they have done this, but Crypto was, to me, when I was growing up reading, catching up on reprints of Superboy issues, mostly through those digests that you just mentioned, Peter. Crypto was always out in space having these adventures, and he would sometimes come back and maybe as they show here in the art by Colleen Duran, as you said, play fetch with meteors and stuff with Superboy, right? But what was he doing in space? Was he out? In some sector of the galaxy? Is the Legend of Crypto? He has a bigger legend, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, than Superman himself, because he's been out there longer and doing all this stuff. I don't know. I just I want to know about these stories that where his adventures are out in space. What was he doing?
I read an early Crypto story Um, I don't remember where it was from. Where he met like a female version of his, like a female superpowered dog, and it was like the love of his life. I was like, oh boy. I mean, the character's been around since 1955, created by Otto Binder and Kurt Swan. I do like that his title logo, I mean, they've used that even recently, the one series that he had in, when was it, like 2006? He had a short-lived series, and they used that same logo. It might be designed a little differently, but it's the same logo. So that's very long-lasting. Now, one thing about his text, though, they say, oh, he's close but not identical to a smooth-haired fox terrier. And they have his height as 25.5 inches, but I looked it up. A smooth-haired fox terrier really only gets about 14 to 15 inches high. So I was like, no, that's not he doesn't look like that. He looks more like a lab, if anything, a white lab.
That's what I always thought, like a small white lab.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, you did point out they don't want to. They in these Who's Who entries, they don't want to pin things down.
Right.
Oh no, I guess you were referring to Dreamgirl's powers earlier, but either way, they I mean that was kind of the hallmark of these Who's Who issues, is that they were not like the Marvel handbooks where they
right.
gave you really specific details. So
I tend to favor the more modern version of Crypto, where the damn thing really is a dog and acts like a dog, but just acts like a super dog. So that's the reason why he's out in space, because he's chasing comets, just like a dog would chase cars. Yeah. So the whole, sometimes when he can speak and all that kind of stuff, it just gets a little weird. But it is Crypto.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to do the lightning one?
I was going to say, we're at that point, aren't we?
Yeah.
We covered everything else.
We got Lightning Lad by Dave Cockrum, Lightning Lass by June Brigman and Roy Richardson, and oddly enough, Lightning Lord by Jim Starlin?
Yeah.
I guess.
Odd.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Or is that just, let's just give Jim Starlin something to do? I
guess.
didn't know if there was any connection.
I didn't know of one.
Okay. Anything to take away from any of these three?
For Lightning Lad, no, not. I mean, the suit that he appears in here with Dave Cockrum, that's his design, right? That's Cockrum's design of Lightning Lad's costume.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. No, really, I mean, their origin story has been told and retold so many times. The one thing I'll just point out, kind of to make a joke, is how many people attempted to get lightning powers after Garth and Ayla's story got out. They went to what was that? What was that planet?
That was just sort of like Korbal.
Korbal, yeah. I imagine that the after word got out, and I'm sure people would go, oh hey, I could get lightning powers too. How many people died trying to do that, or the United Planets quarantined the planet, or I'm going too far, I know, but the thing about Lightning Lass, really, just I love that June Brigman art.
Yeah,
that's beautiful. And now I want to see more of June Brigman's stuff.
Just to go back to Lightning Lad, if you're not a reader of Legion of Superheroes, I mean, this could probably perk up your ears or your eyes. Unknown to the Ranzes, Graham was actually a twin, with his twin brother mystically stolen at birth, transported back in time, and transformed into the creature known as Validus by Darkseid. Or maybe if you were like a lapsed Legion reader, you're like, what? Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, we're talking about it because it's currently going on in the background, but so that's pretty cool from his entry.
And then for Lightning Lord, there was some sort of mention in here. Yeah, he has comparatively limited control over the amount of energy projected in any given bolt, having let his subconscious and emotions dominate his powers. I thought that was an interesting comparison, I guess. It's
Mhm.
very specific. Okay, and I looked at the other two, Lightning Lad and Lass, and they pretty much the text there about their powers pretty much say the same thing.
Right. Right.
So I guess with Lightning Lord, that's a way to explain away why he is constantly being defeated by his siblings. I don't know.
Mm. Maybe the twin aspect of the other two is kind of what makes them so powerful. Because don't you need that for like electricity? Don't you need like a positive and a negative? Something like that.
Well, that would have been an interesting twist on having the two of them together.
Yeah.
That'd be one way around the Legion code or requirement. Has to be unique. So it is unique. They just have to be together to do it. They'd be rejected for that.
Right.
You mentioned possibly Lady Quark.
Yeah, just to kind of throw it out there because she will become kind of integral to a sort of Legion adjacent team.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Shortly after the invasion, where she joins the acronym Legion in 89 or 90 or whenever that is. Part of me just likes it because, first of all, it's beautiful. That Para's artwork.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she's beautiful. The background is beautiful. The design, the layout, her logo. That's just everything every Who's Who entry should be.
Yeah.
Right there.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it features a character that, coming out of Crisis, that was a new character created for that series. I always wanted more about this character.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that I read too much of the acronym Legion book when she was in it. So maybe that itch was scratched there. I just haven't. I don't have those issues. So, but I was always curious how this character fit into the DC universe after Crisis, and what her role is, and what was her impact. And so I guess I'm gonna have to go seek those out. But she was always one of the more interesting new characters coming out of Crisis to me.
Yeah, I mean, she has a lot. I can't say that there's much in the way of characterization, but she's pretty prominent. One thing about the letter column in this Who's Who, they tease that it's not like it's definite, but they say, we've missed certain characters, but they would be sort of fleshed out in a series such as Who's Who in the Superman family. And while it would have been great to get that, and we've been teased by other ones in previous issues, there's no way they could have done a Who's Who in Superman family because Byrne was ready to come on board.
Mm-hmm.
So any kind of entry would have been a pre-Crisis entry. Because he was ready to redo and change and evolve the whole Superman universe. So that would have to have been done years later. I have some other notes. Legionnaires around the DC universe at this time. Also in December was the final issue of Crisis on Infinite Earths. The Legion do not appear in the last two issues because it's really mostly about the present day newly created Earth that spun out of the Crisis. So we're no longer in the future. But it's interesting to note that the last issue of Crisis has a little bit of like a journey through the future of the DC universe, the immediate future, where they look at like Jonah Hex, and the boy that would be Commandy is now known as Tommy Tomorrow. They don't get all the way to the Legion, but it's kind of interesting to note that it feels very much like the Millennium two-parter that we just read in a way.
Oh my God. I had the same exact notes, Peter.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that page near the end, like where the page before where you're talking about Commandy and Jonah Hex. Mm-hmm. You have Harbinger talking about, with the end of the multiverse and the beginning of the new Earth, there is now one consistent past, but what of the future? those
Right.
divergent happenings that have not been explained. And that's what led me to this is like Legion of Superheroes Millennium. And it's almost like as if, Peter, we're 1,000 years later, we're still feeling the crisis wave impact the future.
Yeah. Because she's calling them divergent futures. So that means even the Legion is a divergent future.
Mm-hmm.
We always sort of seem to imply that it's set in stone, but clearly not, as 30 plus years, 40 years have shown us, So, yeah. So in terms of DC continuity, pretty soon, I mean, we are living on one Earth right now. So, but it's still cooling, right? Like the whole thing, we haven't gotten Byrne's Superman. We haven't gotten Perez's Wonder Woman yet. It'll be another 18 issues before we wrap up the whole Superboy thing. So we got a lot of time. Also in December, Booster Gold #2, just a whole bunch of shots of him wearing that Legion ring. So again, no real Legion connection outside of the ring just yet, and no explanation why he has the ring, but it's coming. And also in issue 2, we get the reappearance of a Bronze Age character known as Rose and Thorn.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Where have we heard that name before, right? This is her reintroduction into the, quote unquote, modern DC universe. She's acting as a vigilante. She's also acting as Booster Gold's creative director as Rose, which is weird. And that her villains, the 100, are now the 1000, and they are also in the background of the Booster Gold comic at that time. And that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that little segment of going throughout the DC universe is going to be really hard now because Comic Book DB is no longer around, which sucks.
Yeah.
So I think I managed to jump way ahead and just keep writing a whole bunch of notes about that. So we'll see how far I got. Maybe by the time we catch up to wherever my notes end, they'll have a new website back again.
Mm.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered that issue that we didn't like all that much pretty well. Hopefully it didn't come across too negative. Sometimes I feel like I come across that way about these stories as we investigate them issue by issue, really in depth. But it's out of love.
Oh, I think I was way more negative, and mine's not out of love. Mine's that was a terrible issue. I expect better. We've done 19 episodes so far. They've, come on. Don't let us down. We're coming up on some good stuff. They better. I hope my memory of it isn't faulty, because I'm going to be upset.
Yeah.
And I'll quit the podcast.
That's right. There's no guarantees here, but I'm curious what our listeners who are following along, who may have read this in the past or have been introduced to this series because of our podcast, what they think about this particular issue, because we've obviously explained our thoughts on it. So what do other people think about this?
Where can they send feedback?
Well, they can send it to me if they wish. They can email me at longboxreview@gmail.com. And Peter?
Peter at thedailyrios.com. Make sure you go and listen to our recent Tales of the Legion project, because we talk about Bendis's and Ryan Sook's first Legion of Superheroes issue. The second issue hit in December. I don't know when or if we'll talk about any of those, subsequent issues, but we'll let you know if we do. But you can certainly hear our thoughts on that first issue. We'll be back next episode with Legion of Superheroes 21. We're going to continue through with the regular series. Looking forward to that. Definitely hope everybody had a happy new year as they hear this episode. And Eric, you too, as we talk in the present or the future, have a happy new year, which is coming up shortly.
Same to you, Peter.
Yeah, we'll be talking in a whole new decade. It's like we're in the future.
Please let it be better.
All right. As always,
Long
live the Legion
Project Podcast.
Talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.